God's Word Express.
Okay, imagine this. A belief, really ancient, but one that could actually reshape how you see everything today. It impacts billions. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into resurrection and eternal hope. It's fundamental to Christian belief, and we're drawing from a sermon by Pastor Dr. Kamikaze Akaratiti, Our Mission. Well, it's to unpack what this source says, why this idea is so central, and honestly, what it means for you right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the source highlights that this isn't just, ancient history. It connects directly to understanding God. So it's really about getting to grips with core beliefs and what they mean for the future, deeply relevant stuff.
That's a great point, profound significance. And the source jumps right into Hebrews 6.1, mentioning those first principles. But it says the resurrection isn't something you just lay down again like a basic foundation. It's more like
something you build on.
Yeah.
Alongside judgment and other core truths.
Exactly. Not simple, maybe, but absolutely essential.
Fundamental. And stepping back, the sources really hammer home that Jesus' resurrection is like the absolute center, the core. Without it, the source is pretty blunt, faith becomes useless or meaningless. It's really the linchpin.
Okay, so why? Why is it that central? What makes it the linchpin?
Well, the sources break it down. It has these multiple huge implications. First, it's proof of Jesus' authority. Matthew 28:18 says, all authority in heaven and on earth was given to him. The resurrection backs that claim up, undeniably.
Right, the ultimate proof.
Exactly. Second, it's proof of future judgment. Acts 17:31 points to it as the assurance, the evidence for humanity that Jesus is the appointed judge.
Okay, authority, judgment. What else?
Third, proof of his divinity. Romans 1:4 is clear. He was declared to be the Son of God in power by his resurrection. It's unequivocal.
So it points directly to who he is.
Yes. And finally, maybe most personally for believers, it's the basis for justification. Romans 4:25 says, he was raised for our justification. It's his resurrection, his victory over death, that makes it possible for believers to be seen as righteous. It's not just the death, but the rising.
Wow, okay. That really lays out the centrality. But, the big question people always ask, especially today, is how do we know? How do we know what actually happened? What does the source say about the evidence? Is it, solid?
Oh, it presents the evidence as very robust, compelling even. First off, Jesus' death was public, super public, visible to everyone in the city. The source uses modern analogies, like it happened in the equivalent of a major city square. Everyone could see.
So no doubt he actually died.
Right. And second, the indicators of death were clear. Roman soldiers who were, highly skilled at executions made sure. Piercing the side, the blood and water separating, that shows no circulation. Clear sign of death. Then the body was wrapped, sealed in a tomb.
Okay, public death, confirmed death.
Third, the tomb was guarded. Roman soldiers. And they knew if that body went missing, they faced execution.
So they wouldn't just fall asleep or look the other way.
Highly unlikely. And then fourth, this is maybe the most compelling part, the post-resurrection appearances. So many of them. Acts 1:3 mentions appearances over a 40-day period. The source says over 40 people. And it makes this really striking claim. There's actually more evidence for Jesus' resurrection than for the existence of King Alexander the Great.
More than for Alexander the Great. That's a bold claim.
It is. And fifth, after those 40 days, a mass ascension witness. Reportedly 500 people at once saw him ascend.
500.
Yeah. And sixth, think about the disciples' transformation. These guys were initially terrified, hiding. Then suddenly they're courageous, willing to die for this belief. That's what launched Christianity from this tiny province to, well, over 2 billion people today. That change needs an explanation.
That's a powerful point, the human transformation.
Definitely. And lastly, number 7, the lack of denial by early opponents. People like Emperor Nero persecuted Christians fiercely, but the source notes they didn't try to disprove the resurrection like, oh, that's a lie, here's the body. No, they just ordered people to stop talking about it.
They acknowledged its power by trying to suppress it, not debunk it.
Precisely. They couldn't actually deny the core event happened.
That's quite a case the source builds. Really thorough. But it also mentions something else that might surprise people. Jesus' resurrection, while central, wasn't the only one in the Bible. It suggests a larger pattern.
It absolutely does, and this is fascinating. The sources point back to the Old Testament first. God's power over death showing up earlier. You have Elijah raising the widow's son at Zarephath.
Right, I remember that.
And Elisha raising the Shunammite woman's son. The source even mentions the detail he sneezed 7 times before opening his eyes.
Wow, specific detail.
And maybe the strangest one. A dead man thrown into Elisha's tomb comes back to life just by touching his bones. Wild.
Okay, so direct resurrections.
Yeah.
But didn't you mention people being taken to, not dying first?
Yes, exactly. Another layer, there's Enoch. Genesis just says he walked with God and he was not, for God took him. Poof.
Just gone.
And Elijah, famously taken up in a whirlwind with a chariot of fire, didn't experience death in the usual way.
So this theme of overcoming death or bypassing it
Yeah.
runs through the Old Testament.
Yeah.
How does it carry into the New Testament then?
Well, it definitely continues. Jesus himself, of course, performs these incredible resurrections. There is Jairus' daughter.
Talitha Kumi.
Exactly. Little girl, arise, and she just gets up. Then the son of the widow of Nain Jesus commands him to arise, and he sits up, starts talking.
Amazing.
And maybe the most dramatic, Lazarus, dead for days, already decaying. The source emphasizes this was something only the Messiah could do.
A clear sign.
Definitely. And it wasn't just Jesus. His apostles continued it. Peter raising Tabitha, or Dorcas. He prays, commands her to arise. She opens her eyes. Paul raises Eutychus. The young man who fell asleep during Paul's long sermon fell out a third-story window and died. Paul brings him back.
Okay, so tallying it up.
The sources count 5 instances in the Old Testament resurrections or being taken, and 5 in the New Testament besides Jesus.
Making Jesus the 11th.
Right, but here's the key distinction the source makes. Jesus' resurrection was unique. He was the only one with a new body, a transformed, glorified body, not just resuscitated back into the old one.
Ah, that's a crucial difference. A new body. Which leads us directly to the future, doesn't it? The promise for believers. So what does all this history and theology mean for you, the listener, and your own future?
Exactly. This is where it gets personal. The promise, drawn from texts like Romans 6, Galatians 2, Colossians 2, John 11, it's a resurrection just like Jesus.
Okay.
If you're united with him in death spiritually, through faith, you will be united with him in resurrection. That's the core hope.
A future resurrection for everyone who believes.
Yes, but there's more. Daniel 12 paints this picture of awakening from the dust of the earth, some to everlasting life, but others to shame and everlasting contempt.
So choices matter. Actions have eternal consequences.
Absolutely. For good or ill, the source is clear. Eternal consequences. And this connects to the kind of body believers will have. The glorious body.
Glorious. What does that mean?
Philippians 3 talks about transforming our lowly body to be like his glorious body. Powerful, glorious. And 1 Corinthians 15 draws this amazing contrast. Sown perishable, raised imperishable, sown in dishonor, raised in glory. Weakness to power, natural to spiritual. A complete upgrade,
An upgrade sounds good.
doesn't it? But here's a really thought-provoking detail from 1 Corinthians 15, verses 38-41. The source points this out. Just like the sun, moon, and stars have different levels of brightness, different glories, so too will resurrected individuals have different levels of brightness or glory.
Wait, really? Different levels of glory?
That's what the source indicates. Some shining brightly, others less so. Maybe some, it implies. Not at all.
Wow, okay. And what determines that?
It's linked to earthly actions. Specifically, the source highlights acts of service. Even things considered dishonorable or mundane now, like carrying things, washing dishes, or the things Jesus mentioned, like visiting the sick, giving water to the thirsty. These are presented as investments reaped in glory.
So small acts of faithful service have huge eternal significance for our future glory.
That's the connection being made, and Colossians 3 confirms it. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory.
This really shifts your perspective on everyday life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Every action potentially echoing in eternity, affecting your glory.
Mm-hmm.
So let's bring it right down to earth. What are the practical implications? How should this change how you live day to day?
Well, the source is quite direct here, believing this genuinely. It should transform your life radically, because suddenly everything you do has an eternal impact. That's a heavy but motivating thought.
How so motivated?
Well, the prospect of future judgment, yes, but also rewards. And specifically, these varying degrees of glory. It should spur faithful living. The source really pushes against complacency. It uses strong examples, warning against things like being controlling, like a Jezebel, or gossiping, or even just passively watching sitcoms when you could be actively serving faithfully. The warning is stark. These choices have eternal prices.
So it's a call to active, intentional faith.
Very much so. It even mentions that many will be chosen to govern with Christ for 1,000 years based on their faithfulness now. So the call to action is clear. Don't be lukewarm. Be faithful. Engage. Serve. Because the reward, the glory, will be immeasurable.
We've definitely covered a lot. The resurrection isn't just history. It's presented as real, evidenced, and holding this incredible promise. A future resurrection for believers, shaping not just destiny, but even the level of glory experienced. It's quite something to process.
It really is. Which leads to a final thought, maybe something for you to reflect on. Given that everything you do has an eternal impact and affects your future glory, what small, perhaps seemingly dishonorable or unnoticed acts of service will you choose to invest in today, knowing they could yield this profound eternal harvest?
That's a powerful question to consider. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.